DZ. It's the matter of Orville and Gail Geisler versus Hope Bear and Jeremy Geisler. It's the date and time set for a continuation hearing pursuant to MCL 722.27B4B. All parties have appeared today via Zoom, there being no objections, along with petitioner's attorney Sarah Stafford and Miss Bear's attorney Morgan Shire. When we last left off, we were on cross-examination of Orville Geisler. It's my understanding that is where we'll pick up today. Mr. Geisler, I remind you that you remain under oath, and Ms. Shire, your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I don't recall if we had sequestered witnesses previously or not.
My notes don't indicate any sequestration.
Okay. All right. So I believe from my notes, and I might go over some stuff again just because I'm not entirely clear in some of the spots what I covered. So, Mr. Geisler, let's see. I think when we had, actually, before I get started, Your Honor, I have a note here that I did not move for admission of the video that we looked at, the photo of the room, and the two cards that were addressed. So I don't know if you want me to screen share right now to look at those, but I would move for admission of the Easter card, the Mother's Day card, the photo of the bedroom, and then the video of the bedroom that we looked at.
We'll just mark all of those items collectively as respondent bears exhibit A.
Okay.
And Ms. Stafford, any objection?
I guess my only objection would be to the photograph and the video, as I don't think proper foundation was laid as to their authenticity. I don't know who took those photos, when they were taken, when the video was taken, who took the video.
All right. So Mr. Geisler was able to identify what he believed was the video portion, as I believe he indicated that the video portion was of the residence that he was residing in, and then he testified that the photograph he believed was of a separate dwelling that Jeremy was residing in. He testified that he recognized both of those. I find that that's appropriate authentication. I'll overrule. Respondent bears exhibit A is admitted.
Okay, so Mr. Geisler, you previously verified, I believe, that you, during some of the visits that you had with both Hope and Astrid, that you had accepted some phone calls from Jeremy when those visits were taking place. Do you recall that testimony?
I do, yes.
Okay. And so I want to ask, do you recall going to brunch with Hope and Astrid on one of the Sunday visits?
I believe it may have been Mother's Day.
Okay. And do you recall all riding in the car together?
Yes.
And during that car ride, you took a call from Jeremy while you were on your way to brunch, correct?
I believe so. It's so long ago. I believe so.
Okay. Now, do you recall during that conversation, Jeremy made a comment directly to Hope, telling her to wear a bra? Do you recall that comment?
Say.
Well, I'm asking about party
overrule party admission, opposing party admission.
So, Mr. Geisler, do you recall Jeremy saying to Hope to wear a bra?
No, I do not.
Okay. Do you recall any comments that were inappropriate during that conversation from Jeremy?
It depends upon the aspect of it, what's inappropriate.
Okay, well, maybe from Hope's perspective, do you think any of the comments were inappropriate?
I don't believe so.
Okay, so when you say it depends upon the aspect of inappropriate, I guess why don't you explain to me what might have been inappropriate then?
I don't recall. It's been so long.
Okay. Do you recall after that phone call reassuring Hope that you wouldn't put her through those phone calls any longer?
Again, it's been so long. I don't remember exactly what was said.
Okay. And previously, when we talked about those phone calls, you had said that Hope is free to leave the room when you took calls from Jeremy, correct?
Correct. Leave the room, leave the house, whatever she felt she wanted to do.
Right. But in the car, she couldn't leave the room, could she?
I know, but she could have told us just to stop if it was that offending to her.
Okay. All right. Do you recall her texting you on May 11th stating, I really don't want to talk about this any further, as this has been a huge traumatic event where I was strangled and beaten and could have lost both my and Astrid's life?
I don't recall, no.
Do you recall her ever telling you, hey, I'm not comfortable talking about or to Jeremy?
Again, it's been so long, I don't recall.
Okay. Do you recall sending her a message on June 4th stating, hi, Hope, I just talked to Jeremy. You wanted me to say thank you for checking into the child support issue right away this morning. And he wanted me to give you a message that you're the love of his life and he misses his best friend and his little rabbit.
I do remember something like that, but the exact phrasing I can't say.
Okay. But that sounds like something you might have sent to her.
Possibly, yes. We still considered her our daughter-in-law.
Okay. And now I think I don't know if I asked you about the Build-A-Bears. Do you recall giving Hope some Build-A-Bears from Jeremy?
Yes.
Were you aware of how those Build-A-Bears were created?
Yes.
Were you aware that the Build-A-Bears included a voice message from Jeremy?
Yes.
Okay. Did you hear that audio message?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, if I may share screen, I'd like to pull up the video of the Build-A-Bear to ask to verify if that's the same Build-A-Bear.
Granted. Ms. Shire, you're a witness.
Your Honor, may I inquire whether or not Ms. Stafford is planning to call any other witnesses? Because if she is, I would like to reserve my examination.
I do not.
Okay, thank you. So you just testified. So we talked about the fact that you live currently in Michigan. And what county do you live in? Leelanau. Okay, and so there was some testimony about whether or not there's an existing order regarding Astrid. So if you could explain to me, so something was filed in Wisconsin, is that correct?
Right. There was a child support hearing that was pending. And so I hired an attorney and together we filed a motion for good cause, which the Wisconsin law allows for a domestic abuse survivor to request such a motion.
Okay.
And based on
What was your motion for good cause based on?
it was based on simply the history of Astrid's biological father's abuse and the many reports, the many documentations of this horrific full and short history. It took very little time for them to recognize, oh, okay, and they dismissed it.
Okay, so the court granted this good cause.
They granted it, yes.
Okay, and so your understanding of what that means is that the case is dismissed.
Correct.
Okay. And so, how many times during your dating relationship with Mr. Geisler, how many times was he arrested for domestic violence?
Objection. I'm not sure the relevance, and I'm also feel like we're treading a fine line. I don't know what he has active for his criminal matters.
Okay, that was my only question at this point in time about that. I was sort of outlining the procedural history.
All right, so I'll allow it, I guess, for foundation purposes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. So once the court in Wisconsin dismissed the case, was it your understanding that you were then free to move to Michigan?
Yes.
Okay. And did you receive that advice from a Wisconsin attorney?
I did.
So prior to moving to Michigan, well, first of all, let's back up. There was some conflicting testimony about when the last time Astrid would have seen Gail and Orville was. So there was an incident that was there was a dinner and there was a accidental discharge of a shotgun.
Yes.
When was that?
I believe that was it was either like the very end of May or very beginning of June.
Beginning of June. Okay.
Beginning of June.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when there was testimony like that you moved in May, is that accurate?
Oh, no, I think it was the last week of May into the first couple days of June, I started to move out. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
And
All
I'm getting some background noise, so I'm just going to go ahead and mute the device that doesn't have the witness testifying. One moment. Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, and so you testified at length about what led you to deciding you needed to get away. And you said something like you were concerned about the judgment of Mr. and Mrs. Geisler.
Yes.
Give me some examples about what judgment you were concerned about.
Well, they weren't very concerned about their son leaving Astrid alone on a changing table in the middle of the night. They weren't concerned when I was 8 months pregnant and he was physically abusing me. They weren't concerned when I went to them and asked for help when he was abusing me.
I'm going to object. This is speculation. How does she know my client wasn't concerned?
Because they told me I was crazy.
Hold on, Ms. Bear. So I'll sustain the objection. Maybe need some foundation to reach that conclusion.
Yep. So I asked you about their judgment, and you're telling me what things that you thought that they weren't concerned about.
Yeah.
What caused you to think they weren't concerned about the things that you just talked about?
Well, when I told them about these things, like at our dinners, when I told them what took place the night of March 15th into the morning of March 16th, they didn't look surprised. They weren't horrified. They more so said, yeah, that's Jeremy. He gets jealous and angry. We're trying to get him some therapy or something.
Okay. So did that make you uncomfortable with the idea of continuing to expose Astrid to them?
Yes.
Now, did you, through that, so let's talk about from when Astrid was born until when you left Wisconsin. During that time, first initially, where we already heard testimony that you were residing with Gail and Orville, is that correct?
Correct.
While you were in their home and Astrid was with you, were there ever any domestic violence incidents between you and Jeremy that they witnessed?
Yes.
What happened?
There was one night that Jeremy had read
Sorry,
my.
can you repeat the question? You cut out for some reason.
Okay, I asked her if during the time period when they were living in the home with Astrid, in Orville and Gail's home with Astrid, if there were any domestic violence incidents that Mr. and Mrs. Geisler witnessed.
Okay,
She's
thank you.
responding to that.
Thank you.
There was an incident when Astrid was 3 weeks old where I had written in my journal, keeping track of the newborn stage. I simply wrote that Jeremy was sleeping in a separate room, and I said, that's okay, it's our time to be girly girls together. Jeremy became irate when he read this, and while Astrid was in my arms, he grabbed my other arm, twisted it behind my back, and pinned me down against the bed. I screamed, and I screamed for him to get off of me. Gail came bursting in and to see what was going on, and she just kind of rolled her eyes and said, well, Hope's a screamer, and then muttered something about hormones.
Okay, so did you feel, were you concerned about their physical protection of Astrid based on that? Okay, and then at some point in time, were there any other incidents where they would have witnessed domestic violence between you and Jeremy?
None that come to mind.
Okay, and did they ever witness you being violent towards Jeremy?
No.
Okay, you testified that you felt like you were kind of required to stay in your room.
Yes, that was Jeremy wanted me to stay in the room at all times.
Okay, would you say Gail and Orville were aware of that dynamic?
I don't think so. Jeremy had concerns about his father. He said that he didn't want his father looking at me, and that he often had suspicions surrounding his father, inappropriateness.
Okay, and then when you were living in their home, did Jeremy ever hurt Astrid?
No.
So then we had talked about a video, and then it was admitted as part of Defendant's Exhibit A, and it was a video of one of the bedrooms in Gail and Orville's home. Did you take that video?
I did.
Okay. And then there was also a photo admitted as part of that same group. There was a picture of a room that had similar paint on the walls to the video. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Did you take that picture?
I did.
Okay. Now, where was that picture taken?
In their home, in Jeremy's bedroom.
Okay. Now, there was some testimony from Orville that Jeremy painted one of the rooms in the rental home to look like his bedroom from home.
It's not accurate.
Okay. And then there was also testimony that he painted one of the rooms in the rental home green.
Green. Yeah.
Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
Okay. But from your perspective, was it the same type of green?
No.
Okay. Your Honor, may I screen share?
Granted.
Okay, so can everybody see a video playing on the screen right now?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so Hope, there's a video playing on the screen right now. There's no audio to it. Did you take this video?
I did.
And what is it of?
This is the nursery, the room that Orville alleges was the same room with the plant hanging.
Okay, but so this is a nursery, and what color is it?
It's green.
Okay. Does it look similar to you, to the green from the other bedroom?
No.
Okay. Were there any other green rooms in the rental home?
No.
Okay. Did you and Jeremy paint this room green for Astrid?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I would move for admission of Exhibit E, which would be a video of the room at the rental home that's green.
One moment. Ms. Stafford, any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, he's admitted.
Okay, thank you. Is it true that after Jeremy was arrested, you brought up the idea of continuing the Sunday dinners?
Yes.
Okay, and why did you do that?
I felt it was important for Astrid to continue a relationship with her grandparents and with her father's side of the family. That was important to me, and I felt it would be important to her too.
Okay, and so you testified already that over time you essentially became uncomfortable with that relationship.
Yes.
Did you stop the visits just to get back at Jeremy?
No.
Okay.
I took it very seriously.
How many times do you think you asked Gail and Orville to stop asking you about participating in Jeremy's proceedings?
I would say it was about twice a week during that whole time period.
And how was it that you were seeing them twice a week?
Well, they would show up at my place of work to bring me a latte, but that visit would end up being focused around Jeremy and the upcoming probation revocation hearing. They would, Orville would come over to the house and say, oh, I just have to check on something. I have to work on this. But that would be compounded with him confronting me about Jeremy.
Okay. When Orville would come to the home, would he tell you ahead of time that he was going to come?
Most of the time he would send a text. There were a couple times where he did not, and he showed up, and there were 2 occasions where I was not home, where he entered the home without my permission or knowledge.
Okay. And then when those things happened, was there some sort of emergency happening with the house?
No.
How do you know he entered the home when you weren't home?
When I got home, there was a vase of lilacs by the sink, and I sent him a message and was like, oh, you saw my dirty dishes. The whole house smells like lilacs, just to kind of like, I was just trying to figure out, like, was that him? And he's like, yeah, I wanted to come and check on the squirrel situation because there was a infestation of squirrels running around the house.
Okay. And then we'll come back to that, but when do you think you first started asking Gail and Orville to stop either talking to you about the court proceedings or relaying messages from Jeremy?
I would say it would have been early April, about 2 weeks. It was about 2 weeks after the March 16th incidents.
Okay. And you said you continued to ask maybe 2 times a week. How did you ask them to stop?
It would either be in person, over the phone on a phone call, text messages, as we saw. 99% of these interactions were like over the phone or in person. So I can't like show you that, but I can tell you that's what took place.
Okay. And then I'm just going to show you, because we looked at Gail's text messages and I don't think we did look at Orville's. So let's take a look at a couple of those. May I screen share, Your Honor?
Granted.
Okay, thank you. All right, so can you see this text message on the screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I thought you were asking.
No, and then is this a text message that you provided to our office?
Yes.
Is it a screenshot of a message between yourself and Orville?
Yes.
Okay. So can you read the date of the message? And then
That's May 11th, 2022.
Okay, and what is it that you communicated to Orville at that time?
I told Orville that I did not.
Well, you can read it.
Okay, sure. Hey, Orville, I have been advised not to talk to Chris, and I also think you should know he is mistaken. There's nothing I could do on my end. I was told by the district attorney's office that even if I recanted my statement, they would still proceed with the hearing. I really don't want to talk about this any further, as this has been a huge traumatic event where I was strangled and beaten and could have lost both my life and Astrid's.
And what was that message in response to?
He had come into my place of work and expressed in exasperation that he said, I'm coming to you as a father, just call Chris. Every time I saw them, they said, call Jeremy's lawyer, call Chris, he'll walk you through how to recant. They just kept expressing that I should call the lawyer. And after I called the district attorney's office and talked to them, they explained all of this to me.
Okay. And so after sending that message, did Gail and Orville continue to talk to you about the case?
Yes.
Okay. And so let me, if I may screen share again, Your Honor. Up here now is another text message. Do you recognize this text message?
Yes.
Okay. And who is it between?
Myself and Orville.
Okay. And so you had just testified that there was a time when he dropped flowers off at your house. Is this the message you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. So when is this message from?
June 4th,
Okay.
2022.
Okay. And then can you tell me, is this a message that Orville sent to you?
Yes.
Okay. So does he give you another personal message from Jeremy?
He does.
Okay. And how did that make you feel?
Uncomfortable.
Okay, so I would move for admission of both the text messages that we just showed as Exhibit F. There was some testimony about Sunday phone calls. So when you were with Gail and Orville for your Sunday dinners, did Jeremy call the house?
Yes, he called their cell phone. Yes.
Okay, he called their cell phone. And did that happen every Sunday?
Yes.
Okay. Was there ever a point in time that stopped?
There was a point in time when it stopped. Yes.
Okay. So if you remember, or even can give me the month of when do you think that stopped approximately?
It was after Easter, after the phone incident in after Easter, when I was in the car with them and they saw it. Jeremy had taken it to such an inappropriate point, and they saw how visibly disturbed I was by this. Gail said, I'm never going to put you through that again. And then it stopped.
Okay. And I think, I can't remember who, but Orville or Gail had said that might have been Mother's Day brunch. Is it possible that it was Mother's Day?
It's possible that was Mother's Day. I thought it was Easter, but
Okay.
maybe I'm wrong.
But you were going to a brunch for some sort of occasion.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And so did Jeremy make a comment to you? I mean, was he talking directly to you when he was calling on Sundays?
He wouldn't say my name, but I have a hard time believing he would say to his mother, remember, Daddy loves you and misses your smell and taste. So I would think that it's reasonable to think he was addressing me.
Okay, so he said that in front of
everyone, knowing he was on speakerphone. Yeah.
Okay. Did you? So he was calling from the jail at that time, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And as far as you know, was the jail recording those conversations?
Yes, all those conversations are recorded and archived.
Okay, so if you needed to, that's something you could get
Absolutely.
a copy of. Okay. Okay, and so we already have looked at the Mother's Day card and the Easter card. So when they gave you the Easter card from Jeremy, did that make you uncomfortable?
It did.
Did you tell them that?
I did, and Gail seemed to be able to anticipate that it would make me uncomfortable She went to, and she said, this wasn't my idea, but this is from Jeremy. So she seemed to know that this wouldn't go over well. And I was just kind of like, oh, okay. Not
What an actress.
her words.
Okay. And then you still received a month.
Yes,
Okay. And did you tell them at that time that that made you uncomfortable?
I did.
Okay. And then when did you receive the Build-A-Bears?
That was Mother's Day.
Okay. So did you get the card and the bears at the same time?
Yes.
Were there any other gifts or written messages like that that they passed along?
No other written messages from him.
During this time frame, were you trying to maintain a positive relationship with Gail and Orville?
I was.
So when you were asking them to stop, I mean, were you trying to do it in a way that was kind?
I was. I am not a confrontational person. Confrontation makes me really uncomfortable. And so I was trying to be firm and be clear, but also be kind and also be understanding of these are people that are hurting their, their baby, their son, did something unimaginable and is in prison. Like, that's a traumatic experience in itself. So I was trying to be mindful of that despite what I was being put through.
So what happened on March 16th that caused Jeremy to go to jail?
He came home from work at 2 a.m, drunk, and saw that I had taken the garbage out. He was irate that I took the garbage out and accused me of having sex with someone at the end of the driveway.
Section, is this, who is she testifying did all this?
Jeremy.
Okay, how is this relevant to the grandparenting time of my client?
Right. So I think that it's relevant because a lot of this testimony has been focused on how they weren't respecting her wishes or her requests for boundaries in keeping her distance and her safety from Jeremy. So I think the underlying incident that occurred during Astrid's lifetime that all the existing parties were aware of is relevant just for purposes of the background of why she's made the decision to restrict that relationship and that connection. And that goes to Astrid's best interests and whether or not there's substantial harm to Astrid in limiting that relationship.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm more interested in knowing exactly what it was about that incident that Miss Bear told to the grandparents.
Sure.
I mean, she testified that she relayed to them the events of the late, March 15th into the early morning hours of March 16th, but I don't know exactly what she told them. That's what I'd like to know. Otherwise, what actually, may have occurred for the purposes of this case, I don't think is relevant. So I'll sustain the objection, to that extent.
Okay, so I will rephrase it, Your Honor, to get to that that limited purpose. So without telling me everything that happened on March 16th, you did testify earlier that you relayed information about the incident to Orville and Gail. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So was there just a one-time conversation when this happened, or when did that conversation take place?
There were several conversations. The first one, the day of March 16th, hours later, Gail called me and just to understand, she wanted to understand what happened, what took place. My mother had called her very upset, telling her everything that happened, and she wanted to hear it from me. So I gave her a more summarized version, but I told her all the important points what stood out to me was how Jeremy was abusing me while Astrid was in my arms. She was in my arms while he grabbed fistfuls of my hair and slammed my head against the wall. She was in my arms when I was being strangled and held down. She was in my arms when I was curled in the fetal position on the floor while he repeatedly kicked me in the back. She was in my arms when he pried my arms apart with all of his might and she fell onto the floor.
So you told all of this.
I told this
all of
to
these
Gail.
to Gail.
And most importantly, that Jeremy left Astrid on the changing table alone, completely alone and naked in the house.
All right. And then, so that was on March 16th. You had a telephone conversation.
Correct.
Okay. Did you have additional conversations about the incident?
Yes, it would come out on occasion at our dinners when I would tell them little bits of more of what happens. For example, when I was holding Astrid and Jeremy went to shove me, but his hand made contact with Astrid's head. So she was 3 months old and her little head went thrashed around from his hand trying to push me. He pushed her head. So I told them about it, and Gail looked at me with horror and was just like without words.
Okay. Oh, she did express some horror.
She did when I told her that, but they just kind of quickly changed the subject.
So in a conversation when you would have told them about the event, in that same conversation, would they have asked you to either told you Jeremy loved you or asked you
Yes.
to recant?
Yes. They would say Jeremy still has hope for the future and he's going to work on himself and he's taking classes and it would just help. You can't get therapy unless he doesn't go to prison. Like he can't get therapy while in prison. So if you can write a note, and that's when that would come into play.
Okay. Now there's a lot of testimony about you lived with Gail and Orville for 2 months. It sounds like from your perspective, who was parenting Astrid during that time?
I was.
Okay. And what was Gail and Orville's level of involvement?
It was pretty minimal. I mean, I would, like we've established, I would bring her out when Jeremy was at work and say like, hey, do you want to hold her? Like, look at what she's doing. Look at, give them updates. Show them how well she's doing at tummy time, and that's about it.
Do you believe that Gail and Orville love Astrid?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Do you think that at some point in the future is there any opportunity that if there were changes in your relationship or healing and boundaries that there could be some sort of appropriate contact between Astrid and Gail and Orville?
Down the road, that would possibly be something to consider. There's a lot of damage done by both Jeremy and his parents. I have a lot of concerns. That's not something I feel comfortable with at this point in time.
Okay. So other than kind of you testified to at length, the pressure that you experienced and I don't know if you use the word manipulation, but just the relationship dynamics, are there other concerns that you have about Gail and Orville in their care for a child?
Well, I absolutely have concerns about the marijuana growing, which I know they denied, but that is a concern of mine, is that I saw with my own eyes the marijuana plants growing operation, the growing setup. I think that shows very poor judgment, as it's not legal in Wisconsin. I have concerns because they would openly smoke marijuana in the house, and the smoke was like drifting into the room. I have concerns because Jeremy expressed to me that Gail has an alcohol problem. I have not personally seen that, but he said that she's a functioning alcoholic.
But you didn't witness that.
But I didn't witness that, no.
And then, so let's talk for a second about that bedroom. You took the video, we got that testimony.
Yeah.
When you were taking the video, could you see that there were firearms in the room?
I could.
Okay,
Yes.
and so I'm sure the referee will recall there were some things that were in the corner that looked like firearms that I think Orville testified was a cane and an airsoft gun. If you know, what were those things that were in the corner?
Those were absolutely firearms, and I believe one of those was an automatic weapon.
Okay. I think there was like a little baggie attached
Yes.
to the trigger of one of them.
There was a baggie full of bullets attached to one of them.
Are you very familiar with guns?
Not very much so. I have just very basic knowledge of guns.
So you couldn't identify the kind of gun or anything?
Not
like that?
specifically.
Do you know whether or not those guns were Jeremy's or Orville's?
I don't know who they were registered to. I believe them to be Jeremy's because they were in his room.
Okay.
But I don't know who they're registered to.
Okay. And when you lived there, are you aware of whether or not they had a gun safe?
I have no knowledge of a gun safe.
Okay. So currently you live in Michigan and your parents live in Wisconsin, correct?
Correct.
Do you take Astrid and leave her with your parents overnight?
No.
Okay. Have you left Astrid with anyone overnight?
No.
Okay. Why is that?
She's a baby. She still needs me. I don't leave her for more than, being away from her right now is challenging enough. She's missing her music class at the library so I can be here. I'm not in the habit of just dropping my child off somewhere and going about my life.
Okay. So you're not getting, but you're facilitating a relationship between Astrid and your parents, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We FaceTime several times a week. They are coming in just a couple weeks to visit us and stay with us.
Okay. So you value grandparents in a child's life?
Absolutely.
Okay. You believe that grandparents just need to be safe in order to be heavily involved in a child's life?
Yes.
And how old is Astrid now?
20 months.
How is she doing?
She is doing great. She just recently started walking a few weeks ago, so little behind on that, but that's okay. I was behind too. She loves music. She's a big eater. She loves meatloaf. She just started saying mama finally. She's hilarious.
You said she's in a music class. What other activities does she participate in?
We're part of play groups in the Leelanau County. We like to, on days where the weather's yucky, we like to stop by the mall where they have a children's playground area inside. We call it the germ tree because it's just like this big playground where she gets to play with other kids. We go to the children's museum. We color.
Is she receiving any services?
Yes, we are part of the Early On program. It's a program in every state, but it might be under different names in different states. But it is early intervention if children are showing any signs of being like a little behind or whatever concerns there may be. I talked to her doctor, and I had concerns because she was 18 months old and not walking yet. So we reached out to Early On, and she's walking now. So it's been good to have that resource to lean on.
Was it distressing for Astrid when she didn't go to the next Sunday visit after you had had your Sunday visit in June?
No,
Do you think she remembers her Gail Marble?
no,
Do you have any reason to believe that she would be harmed mentally, emotionally, or physically if Gail Marble aren't able to have a relationship with her right now?
no.
Your Honor, I have no further questions at this time.
Stafford?
Thank you, Your Honor. So you had made allegations that someone was smoking marijuana in the home. Who are you alleging was smoking marijuana in the home?
Bill and Orville.
Okay. And you heard my client testify under oath that his parents do not have an issue with alcohol or drugs, correct?
I heard that was said, yes.
Okay. Do you smoke marijuana?
I have in the past. I didn't throughout my pregnancy, and just recently I enjoyed some on my birthday.
Okay. And do you drink alcohol?
Very seldomly.
Okay. And you stated that you have no personal knowledge that Gail has any issues with alcohol.
Not that I've seen.
And do you have any knowledge if she even drinks alcohol?
Just what Jeremy told me.
Okay. So you have no knowledge of if she even has a glass of wine.
Well, I've seen her have a glass of wine, but I haven't seen her have an issue.
So you've
with
never
it.
seen her highly intoxicated,
Correct.
never seen her drunk and falling over.
Correct.
She's never been arrested to your knowledge for DUI or public intoxication.
Correct.
Okay, so you explained that there were all these concerns, drugs in the home, weapons in the home, violent behavior. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and you indicated your parents lived 5 minutes away, correct?
Correct.
Why did you not remove yourself and the minor child from the home and go to your parents?
I tried several times. When I told Jeremy that I was going to leave, he went and told his mom, and his mom, Gail, confronted me and said, "What's this about you leaving? You're going to leave and never allow us to see Astrid again?" And that wasn't what was said. So anytime I tried to leave, that was confronted. There were several times where I left and went to my parents' house, but then Jeremy would say like, "Oh, it's never going to happen again. I'm so sorry. We're here for you. You're our family." And so I would try to survive and to keep going with no other resources.
Well, you did have resources. Your parents lived 5 minutes away.
Yeah. But the thing about abusive relationships is they're also emotionally abusive, and it can be really hard when you're in the thick of it, when you are so worn down from it. It can be hard to see that clearly. And obviously enough time has passed. I've healed where I do see that. And but escaping domestic violence situations is not always that easy, Sarah. It's not.
Okay, but my clients were not, or not my clients, my client and his wife were not committing any kind of violence against you, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And did you have a lease agreement with my client when you were renting the home?
No.
Okay, and he owned the home?
Correct.
Okay, so you're saying he came over to check on an infestation of squirrels in the home, correct?
Correct.
And I guess that would be considered a favor to you, correct?
Taking care of the squirrels in the house, sure, let's consider that a favor.
Okay, well, would you have preferred a squirrel infestation?
I would have preferred to live somewhere without a hoarder house.
Okay, and again, did you have a lease agreement?
No, there was no formal lease agreement.
And so you could have left at any time, correct? Without having financial issues.
Exactly. I could have left at any time. Exactly.
And okay, I'm also confused. Prior to our break that Your Honor gave us, you testified that you wouldn't have a problem with my client having grandparenting time in Michigan, so long as the court ordered that there was no discussion of Jeremy. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, if we're speaking hypothetically and towards the future, and
Well, no. I'm not speaking hypothetically. I'm asking if
oh, well, then I was mistaken, and my answer is no.
okay, so you testified under oath that you thought my client could have grandparenting time in Michigan prior to the break, though, correct?
I did, but I had misunderstood.
What did you misunderstand about the question?
Well, I interpreted it as if down the road, if work had been done, if to mend this relationship, if boundaries were set in place, is this something you could maybe consider?
Okay, but I did indicate there would be boundaries in place, and you still testified that that would be appropriate.
Well, I apologize for not expressing myself clearly enough the first time, but I'm happy to clear it up now.
Okay, you indicated that Astrid seems to be behind in some aspects.
She didn't start walking until about 18 months.
Okay, do you think that more interaction with family and friends may assist with her development?
She has a lot of interaction with family and friends, and yeah, it's great. She's a social little butterfly.
Okay, so you do agree that family interaction does assist with her development then, correct?
Yeah, it's certainly a great factor.
Okay, and then you also testified that grandparenting interactions and relationships are very important. Did you not?
I did.
Okay, but then you also testified that you don't think Astrid would be harmed emotionally or mentally if my clients were unable to have a relationship with her.
Correct.
Okay, so how is that, I guess, how do you foresee it not affecting her if you think those relationships are important?
My husband's parents are wonderful grandparents to Astrid, and they see her at least twice a month, along with my parents. So she has a very well-rounded family life. She has many cousins. She has 10 cousins on my side that she get around her age that she gets to play with. She sees family. She sees her grandparents, whether not necessarily her biological paternal grandparents, but she knows them as her grandparents.
Okay, and so you think just because she has 2 sets of grandparents now, she shouldn't have a third for additional support?
I'm saying that at this point in time, no, thank you.
Okay, that's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay, one moment. Ms. Shire, any follow-up?
Just briefly, Your Honor. So you did testify that you believe grandparents are important, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Does that mean that all grandparents are important?
Well, I think that the most important thing is the safety, happiness, and well-being of the grandchild. So if there are grandparents that are jeopardizing that, then certainly not all grandparents are important.
Okay. So is it your position that at this point in time, Gail and Orville are not providing adequate safety or emotional well-being for Astrid?
Yes.
Okay. And I know you testified a number of times, but just if you want to, could you summarize why you believe that?
Their enabling of their son's violence, their poor decision-making skills, being willing to take care of his marijuana plants illegally, the firing of the gun, the manipulation, the pressuring, and the harassing of me are all big factors on why I had to cut them off and why I don't feel comfortable with them being around Astrid. I can't trust that she is safe in their care.
Okay. Now, if down the road at any point in time, grandparenting, if there was an order for grandparenting time, I think you had testified that you would want that to be in Michigan, not Wisconsin. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that you would want there to be those parameters that were discussed. Right. Okay, is that, I mean, do you agree? Do you think an order should be put in place allowing that grandparenting time at this point in time?
No.
Okay. And then when you had testified a little bit before, a little earlier with me, you had kind of said that's a possibility down the road if there's healing in the relationship. Some sort of contact. Right. Okay. Okay. And then as far as Astrid being a late walker, do you know how old you were when you started walking?
I was 19 months old when I started walking.
Okay. So are you kind of, are you concerned about her development based on the fact that she's a late walker?
No.
Okay. But you are being proactive in getting her services.
Right.
Okay. And do you think that her being a late walker has anything to do with her not seeing Gail and Orville?
No.
Okay. I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Ms. Stafford, any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Geisler, Jeremy Geisler, did you have any questions for Ms. Baer? And if you could, I muted your device because of the background noise, so we'll need to unmute your device. Okay, you're unmuted. Did you want to ask some questions?
At this time, no.
Okay, all right then. Thank you, Ms. Baer. You're excused. So, petitioners rest. Respondent, how does respondent Baer proceed at this time, Ms. Shire?
Sorry, Your Honor. Could you repeat what you said? I couldn't hear it.
Well, petitioners rest. So, how does respondent Baer wish to proceed at this time?
May I take 5 minutes with my client?
Sure. We'll take a 5-minute break right now. Thank you.
Thank you.